This or this, which one is actually a better option? It seems to be these are being compared quite a bit, so hopefully at the end of this video, you'll have a good idea if this is a good option for you or maybe this one. And you guys are also going to help out down below in the comments. Let me know which one you think is better after the end of this video. That way we can help other people if they happen to be looking at one of these two options. Now, to address the elephant in the room right now is really just with this one, because when this first launched, the F3800 actually had some issues as far as its solar input being pretty low at only 60 volts, and also the idle consumption. When you would turn this unit on and then also turn on the AC inverter, just the idle standby consumption was a lot. So during a 12-hour test, it would use almost 30% of its power. But this one being the new F3800 Plus and a new firmware update, which I ended up updating this just the other evening, I ended up doing another 12-hour standby test. That is simply just taking both of these units, charging them to 100%, and then you turn on the AC inverter on the Anker, go ahead and turn on the AC inverter on the EcoFlow unit, and then I unplugged them both at the same time and then turned on a timer and let it run for 12 hours. Now, there was something that I noticed right away is that if you look at the screen, you can see that the standby time is only 2.1 days, versus if you look at the EcoFlow, on the screen it says 4.3 days. That's a pretty big difference when it comes to idle consumption time, because this one's just drawing a lot more power even when it's doing nothing. Now, the batteries on these are pretty much identical. They're not too far off. This one is a 3,840 watt-hour battery, while this one is 4,096, so that's only 256 watt-hours of difference. But another thing I noticed on the Anker is that when this is just sitting there doing nothing, about 2 or 3 times an hour, it would actually have the fans come on. They would run for maybe 5 minutes and then shut off. When it comes to the EcoFlow, while I was out in my garage, I didn't really hear the fans come on. I would check it periodically, but still couldn't hear anything. So I think that's also one of the other problems with this unit consuming a lot of power while it's just sitting idle. But after that 12-hour test, this unit ended up consuming 22% of its energy just sitting there doing nothing while the AC inverter is on, while this one only consumed 12%. That's a pretty big difference, almost by half. Now, this one does have a larger inverter. This can do 120 or 240 volt split phase with a total output power of 6,000 watts. This one can only do 4,000 watts, so kind of a big difference. Now, being that this has such a big inverter and a small battery, it does kind of suffer from that big inverter, small battery syndrome, which seems to be a problem, versus this one is matched pretty well at a 4,000 watt-hour battery and a 4,000 watt inverter. Now, of course, while I was doing some basic testing, I also got out my oscilloscope to check for pure sine wave on both of these units, and they did fine at their full wattage. I was able to do about 6,150 watts out of the Anker unit before it ended up shutting off, along with over 4,000 watts on the Delta Pro 3, which did exceptionally well, and both of them had a good pure sine wave. But that's not the only thing I checked. I also broke out my meter to check total harmonic distortion, which you're usually looking for 5% or less. Nowadays, most things are at about 3% or less. That way, no matter what it is you power, you're going to have good, clean energy. Now, one thing I did notice on the Anker is that it was at 2.9%, so it was under 3% during a max load test, while the EcoFlow actually did a little bit better at 1.9%. So both of them passed, and is 1% really that big of a deal when it comes to checking these, which I hope other people show you this stuff, but it's really not that big of a deal. People do get caught up in all this testing, but who really cares? As long as both of these are able to put out a good pure sine wave and clean power, then it really doesn't matter 1% or 2. As long as these units are able to produce what they say as far as advertising, that's probably good enough for most people, because I don't know about you, I can't even find an item nowadays that puts out a dirty sine wave. You couldn't even sell it, really. As long as it's a name brand item, I don't think you're going to have a problem. Now, when it comes to charging these units, they both can charge up to about 1,800 watts with the supplied power cords, but you can charge faster. If you want to charge with 240 volt or say a 50 amp outlet, you can buy these adapters from EcoFlow to charge up the DP3. So you can use a 240 volt generator to charge this up, but it does have to be a pure clean sine wave. They also have this one as well, which has the EV plug, so if you happen to go to an EV charging station, or maybe you have one at home, you can also use this as well. Now, Anker also has their own way to 240 volt charge with this thing. This allows you to plug this into a 240 volt source as well, like a generator, and then also charge this up to about 6,000 watts max. Now, I'm not really sure why they got so big with their charger. This thing is a little bit bigger and bulkier than, well, maybe most of anything I've ever seen. But one of the problems I also found using that is that if you want to charge this at 240 volt, well, you only get 3,000 watts out of it roughly. That's as much as it's going to charge this unit. Unless you add another battery. If you add another battery, then you can get the full 6,000 watts of charging. But the one thing I did find is that while charging this and try to get 6,000 watts, I really never did see much more than about 4,600. I tried several times, even though it was charged about 60–70%, it still never really charged much more than that. I also found that the charging brick kind of makes this weird noise. I don't think it was anything that was to be concerned about, but it was just making a buzzing that was continuous. So I don't know, it's just kind of interesting that they used such a big charging brick when they could have used something a little bit more sleek, or they could have used something like this, which obviously is a lot smaller, compact, and it stores much easier. And just using this adapter alone with just the main unit, you can charge this all the way up to 4,000 watts on a single unit. So if you have an extra battery or not, that's the same charging. You're going to get 4,000 watts with this adapter, whether you have just the main unit or an extra battery. Okay, before we talk about extra batteries, there is something else that you should know, is that while charging with the 120 volt cords and only getting 1,800 watts, well, the pass-through charging on the Anker only allows you to use 1,440. So that means if you have loads higher than that, it'll shut down and reset, and so you have to stay at 1,440 watts or less if you plan to charge with this, like say with a generator. Now you can AC and DC charge both of these at the same time. They both do the same thing. So if you wanted to do AC and also solar with DC, you can do that as well. Now, one thing with the EcoFlow is that if you are charging this at 1,800 watts, it has this system basically called X Fusion. It allows you to use the full capacity of the inverter. So if you are charging at 1,800 watts and your load is 2,500 watts, well, you'll no longer be supplying any charging, but you can still use the device. This makes it to where you don't have any interruptions in your load. Even though you might not be charging it anymore, maybe that load is only intermittent for a couple minutes and then something shuts off. Say if you had a compressor running, or maybe you fired up a coffee pot and nobody knew it. It allows you to use all the way up to 4,000 watts just with 120 volt charging. The X Fusion really is kind of a cool feature because there's no interruptions when it comes to your power. So if you're drawing more than the 1,800 watts, even if it's just for a few minutes, at least you know that it won't shut off, reset, and you can kind of continue on doing what you're doing. Now, when it does come to extra batteries, the Anker actually allows for a lot more expansion. You can expand this all the way up to 27 kilowatt hours, which is a lot. That's much more than the EcoFlow Delta Pro 3. This one actually only allows for 2 batteries, so you get 4, 8, 12 kilowatts total out of this system, unless you add the EcoFlow Smart Panel, which then you can add 3 of these. So then you would have a stack of 12, another stack of 12, another stack of 12, for a total of a 36 kilowatt hour system. Now, I'm not really sure what's up with this thing. It does make for a nice handle at the moment, but I think they could have done something a little bit sleeker as far as maybe just kind of a right angle. But when it comes to the side of the unit, some of these tabs and ports are in the way, so they would have to actually offset this and put it somewhere in the back. That way it's not in the way of your ports. But this does seem a little excessive, but one thing it does allow is that you can put the battery on the ground. Also, this unit you could lay down if you wanted to and still use it, because the ports are on each side. Versus the Delta Pro 3, if you wanted to stand it up, you could use it, but you can't charge it in any way because you would smash your power cord, also your solar input cord. So it's not really usable standing up, and by the time you add 1 extra battery, well, you're kind of stuck as far as how you're going to use it. But that does kind of give you a little bit more options depending on where you're going to store this. I think they could have done something different though with this cord. Versus if you look at the EcoFlow cord, this one is much more smaller, just kind of a little bit more simplistic, and you have these right angle connections. So this is kind of a little bit nicer, I think. They don't stick out going this way, kind of in your face, or at least where you might have a wall in the way. So a little bit better design, I think, on the cables, but that's just all preference and up to you. Now, when it comes to price on these 2 units, they're actually really close. It's almost like a price battle. This was only just a little bit more expensive than this. Then they dropped the price on this. Then I saw the price drop on that. So that's actually a little bit of what we're going to talk about is today's sponsor, which is Wellbots, where you can find some of the cheapest prices for all of this stuff. Wellbots continues to have some of the most competitive pricing online. Whether you're looking for Anker or products from EcoFlow, they have a ton of selection. You can also check out bundling prices, such as bundling a stack of the F3800. You can also look for older products, such as the original EcoFlow Delta Pro, and find a bundle package there. Now, maybe you're a fan of Bluetti. They also have a large selection of Bluetti products. Or maybe you're interested in the ever-popular Delta Pro Ultra from EcoFlow. You can make selections to bundle up 2, 3, or up to 5 batteries for big discounts. Maybe you're a fan of 3D printers. They also have a wide selection of those. You can also check out a wide variety of drones, or maybe if you need a pool cleaner, they have those. They also have a big selection of portable solar panels and more, and this is only a small variety of what they carry at Wellbots. I'll be sure to leave information down below along with discounts so you can find the most competitive prices. Now, when it does come to solar charging, the new F3800 Plus actually did much better when it comes to how much solar you can put into this thing. They even increased the solar input from 11 to 165 volts, so you can take advantage of low light conditions, and also all the way up to 165 volts, so you can really have a lot when it comes to solar array type configurations. And this allows for up to 1600 watts per input, so 3200 watts total, which is a lot for this, so it can charge really quick. Versus EcoFlow Delta Pro, it does have 2 solar inputs, which is nice, which one of them allows for up to 1600 watts of solar, while the other one allows up to 1000 watts of solar, but it does have a lower input voltage of 60 volts. It's not a deal breaker because you do have the other one that's higher at 150 volts, so it still allows for a lot of different types of solar configurations, so you can really build a lot of different solar arrays when your voltage is higher. But the part that I really don't understand are these things. Anker decided to make these proprietary solar inputs, which I've never seen these before and nobody uses them, so now if you damage one of these, you have to go straight to Anker. If they discontinue this model, well then eventually these might just be gone and you won't be able to add any solar input to it. So it's like they really kind of messed up. You done messed up, eh, Anker? So yeah, I'm not really sure what's up with that, but we'll move on to the next thing. Now, the ANKER F3800 Plus is really better used as a whole system, using their own smart panel that they have, and then kind of having this as your home power backup system. You can use this in an RV if you want, since you can lay it down and you can expand batteries and kind of put them in different places. So it does have options for off-grid or RV use. Now, they don't really have a whole lot of accessories for this. It's really, again, supposed to be a home system. Versus the Delta Pro 3, well, it kind of can do double duty. It could also be a home system if you want. It could also be in an RV or in an off-grid cabin, but they also have a lot of accessories for this thing that kind of makes it its own little ecosystem. EcoFlow also made smart generators, which this one can automatically talk to this unit and start and stop at will just by using a smart communication cable. And this can provide AC or DC with a smart cable that can charge this 10% quicker than if you were just doing AC with a smart connection they have. But this is where EcoFlow actually messed up, because there's only 2 ports in the back. So if you have 2 batteries, well, that means if you want to use smart generator, you actually have to unplug one battery, which I don't know why they didn't put a smart connection, the XT150 connector, somewhere on the Delta Pro 3. That way you could still have 2 batteries and still use a smart generator. But it is something different that really nobody else has, and this can provide up to 1800 watts of charging. You also have Smart Generator 4000, so now you can charge even quicker with this unit, which this is also a dual fuel unit, so you can use propane or you can use gasoline if you want. But this is also where they messed up again. Now, I wouldn't call it like a real big mess up, it's just something they didn't really think about in the beginning. Is that this cable is not very long, it's only about 17 feet, and this is what allows a smart generator to communicate with the Delta Pro 3, that way it can start and stop all on its own depending on what you have your charge settings at. And most times whenever you have a generator, they always recommend at least 23 to 25 feet away from your house depending. Now, it's not so bad with propane, but gasoline is a lot more dangerous and also a lot more toxic when it comes to the fumes. But another cool thing that EcoFlow did was make this. This is a new adapter which now allows you to plug this right into this. And now you have an extension. So now you can take 1, 2, up to 3 of these cables and now triple the length. So now this gets rid of that problem. So if you were having issues with having this being too short, well, now there is a solution. And that's one thing that I do like about EcoFlow, is that they have really been making a lot of changes and increasing the ecosystem they are building around this stuff by making accessories and more. And if this stuff isn't enough, You also have Smart Generator 3000, which this one's actually only AC, and it doesn't smart communicate with Delta Pro 3, which I don't know why. It only communicates with the new Delta 3 Plus, which it does it over Bluetooth, which is actually pretty cool, but why wouldn't it do it with this one? So this one is kind of cool, but it doesn't really serve the same function, so maybe they'll fix it. Now, another cool thing is the alternator charger. This is something that EcoFlow came out with about a year ago that allows you to hook this up to your battery in your vehicle, and you can charge the Delta Pro 3 with 800 watts. This also allows for reverse charging. So if you are using this in a van, it can take the power from Delta Pro 3, run it through this device back to your house batteries, and actually start your engine if you happen to drain it down too much. Now, this uses a special cable that really only charges the Delta Pro 3 or other types of EcoFlow devices, so this is really just proprietary for EcoFlow. But if that isn't good enough for you, EcoFlow decided to come out with this one. This is a 500 watt alternator charger, which you can just use battery banks if you want. You don't have to use an alternator. You can just take this, plug it into a battery, and actually just charge these devices. And you can use this one with really almost any power station that you want, because they came out with this new XT60 connector. So now you can use the 500 watt with this cable right here, and you can pretty much charge whatever it is you like. But wait, there's more. There's actually a way to where you can use this battery in EcoFlow's Power Kit system. The Power Kit has been a revolutionary design that has allowed different types of RVs to be able to be powered up using this Power Kit. They also came out with something called Power Dock. The Power Dock is a smart communication device that allows you to connect different types of batteries from EcoFlow. I can now take the Delta Pro 3 extra battery, plug it into the Power Dock, and then into the Power Kit. This will then register onto the screen, and now I have more extra capacity, which before I was only able to have 15 kilowatts, but now this gives me a way to expand it even more. So that is one other thing I do like about EcoFlow, is that they have created an ecosystem that really no other power station company or really any other company has come up with at all. And I can also use a Delta 2 Max battery in that same system if I want. So they're allowing you to use older batteries with newer systems. Now, they don't have a power dock that allows you to use like these batteries with other different devices. It's really strictly just for the Power Kit, at least right now. Maybe later they'll come out with another power dock that allows a mix of these batteries with, say, the older Delta Pro, or maybe this unit, and you could use this battery with a Delta 2 Max battery. But as of right now, you can't really do that. It's really just meant for the Power Kit. Well, now that we've gone through all that information, if you guys have questions, there's a link down below where you can ask me. But which one would you choose? Would you go with the Anker, or would you go with the EcoFlow?